Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. I'm James, still in Taiwan, and again we have Emilio of the Jade Leaf.
Yep. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, and so if you guys didn't catch our episode from last time, we talked a lot about the Jade Leaf and sort of what Emilio is up to in terms of like creating teaware and sourcing some teas. So definitely go check that out. So today we're actually going to be drinking some tea out of this pot that was created by Emilio, which is a wood-fired stoneware pot.
That's right.
So this pot, you said that it performs particularly well for roasted oolongs or darker teas in general. How do you sort of come about that conclusion? Do you test it with a lot of teas, or is it sort of like a very intuitive thing?
I test it first. That's how I know.
Okay.
Like, and also I do know like some of this, a little bit of like science behind it, or like stoneware tends to be more porous than, for example, porcelain has tighter pores. So because it's less absorbent, that kind of leads me to think that it will work better for a lightly fragranced tea, like a high mountain tea, something with a lighter, more floral fragrance. And I do find that in practical use to be very true. Like if I brew a high mountain tea in here, there would be a diminished flavor of those, especially those higher notes. But a tea that has a little bit more body and strength to it, like a pu'er or a roasted oolong, does really well. And kind of this stoneware in general, just like Yixing clay, also kind of tends to add a little bit of like almost like a mineral quality to the water. So in some ways, so that works well with roasted teas or like a stronger tea like a pu'er as well.
Got it. That makes sense. So some of the aromatics, the higher notes that you mentioned, would be maybe not quite as present if you were to brew it in a pot like this.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And this one was also wood-fired, as is much of your teaware. Is that right?
That's true. Yeah, this is a wood-fired pot.
Yeah. And you were talking a little bit earlier about some like the challenges of wood firing and how stuff maybe has a little bit of the wabi-sabi action occasionally, where like stuff will just, I mean, it's not like a perfectly symmetrical pot, for instance. Is that right?
Yeah, that's something I'm also learning more about too, because there's probably some ways to work with the wood firing, because in the kiln there's different areas. Some are hot, some are cooler, but because of the natural wood ash, as the wood burns in the kiln, the ash is distributed around the kiln and falls onto the pieces, and it creates a natural glaze. When the kiln reaches the temperature, the ash melts and creates a natural glaze. So sometimes your lids get stuck onto the pot, you can't get the lid off, or the ash is melted down, it's stuck to the shelf, or the pot has warped because the temperature changed in the kiln. So wood firing, there's a lot of losses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So lots of breakage, lots of different outcomes.
That's true.
Okay, cool. And so today we're drinking a tea that you guys saw on the Jade Leaf.
Yeah, this is the Hong Shui Oolong. I think I have it labeled as the Old Master Hong Shui Oolong because it's made by, and this is the case with this is a more traditional style tea, so it's undergone more oxidation, which is the traditional Taiwanese tea. Maybe Dongding you could say it's one of the most traditional Taiwanese teas, and the classic Taiwanese tea, and it used to go through a period of oxidation, whereas the newer, greener, high mountain teas that are really big on the market, both Taiwan, China, they are not oxidized, or the oxidation period is just very short. Right. So to make a tea like this, it actually undergoes like another day or two of oxidation, which means a lot more work, and it's also a special skill that most people don't have it because it hasn't been practiced in a really long time.
Right. So it's more challenging to make. It takes longer, and it may not even sell as well.
Exactly. So that's why they're hard to find.
Yeah. Yeah. So teas like the Chinese tea guanyin or high mountain teas, for instance, have definitely pushed the sort of like as green as you can get limit as far as oolongs go. So it's sort of these sorts of teas, would you say they're sort of teas that have kind of gone out of fashion, so to speak?
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yes.
So we're kind of lucky. This older gentleman who's been making this tea for a really long time. He actually, the people I get this from which is a tea house that I used to volunteer at in Taipei. They've been begging this guy for years to make this kind of tea, but he won't make it because it doesn't sell. So even out of places like Dongding now, the tea they sell is like really green, low oxidized tea with a lighter fragrance to try to match the market for the high mountain tea. So we're really lucky that this guy last year, the conditions were just right, and he said, "Okay, I'll make it."
Right on.
Yeah.
And so, what about the Western audience? Do you find that people, your customer base, for instance, gravitates also towards sort of that greener tea, or do you find that there might be a little bit more open towards something a little bit darker?
Do you want to get a sniff of this?
Yeah.
Let's pour the leaves in the hot pot.
So it's still very, smells very sweet, very nice, a little bit caramelized sweetness, very roasty. I like oolongs that are sort of like the darker profile. So for me personally, I tend to gravitate towards that, but I don't know if that's true for the rest of
to answer your question you just asked earlier, I'm also as a new business, I'm trying to understand. And also, this is an interesting fact that I'm located in Taiwan. I've never been a tea drink. All the tea I've drunk my whole life is from China, from my past travels in China. I got into tea in China like 15 years ago. So I don't know. I'm not that familiar with the teas that are on the Western market. I mean, I do see what people are drinking on blogs and Facebook and websites and stuff. But I haven't tried a lot of those teas myself. So I think when people react to a tea that I sell and people take some pictures or post on social media, it seems like that tea kind of takes off a little bit more, which has definitely been the case with this tea, the Hong Shui Oolong. It kind of seems to be catching on with
people
some
do
people.
Like this tea.
So it's kind of popular now.
Nice, right on. Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm eager to have a taste of this.
All right. Well, we'll boil the water again and make some.
All right, and this is from spring of last year, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
Spring 2015. And it's from Lugu, which is where they make Dongding. It's actually grown on Dongding Shan, which is like a little hill that has a lake on it, and that's where like the traditional area of Dongding.
And so this is sort of like Dongding used to be processed more commonly this way.
Yeah, more in this style. Yeah. So this is kind of like a more traditional style of Taiwanese tea.
And it's also a sort of tea that, sometimes for the greener teas, or the greener oolongs especially, people are like, oh, drink it, the fresher the better, right?
Yeah.
And so with this, you don't really run that risk quite as much.
Yeah, that's a good point. So teas that are more oxidized and teas that are roasted, they actually, it's better to leave them to rest for a little while because their flavor will actually improve. They call it huo wei, which means like a fire taste. So right after a tea's been roasted, they usually will let it rest for a period of about 6 months or so to let that kind of strong, kind of like, it's not kind of burned flavor, but that it has like a kind of bite to it. They let it recede and the tea becomes much smoother. Mm-hmm. So teas that have been oxidized more or roasted, like a roasted oolong, a black tea, they often improve 6 months later or a year later. They can be even better.
That makes sense, yeah. And I think that would also be true for things like Chinese woolly oolongs and stuff like that, where the roasting, especially the more heavily roasted teas, where if you want to drink it immediately, you'll have a wonderful charcoal taste. But other than that, if you want to really experience it, the nuances of the tea and stuff, sometimes it's better to wait half a year or even a year.
Yeah, I heard an interesting story because from a Chinese medicine point of view, and people in Taiwan are really aware of foods and how foods affect your body. One guy told me that he had a strongly roasted tea, and that his customer wanted to drink it right away, but he said it's not ready yet. You need to wait like 6 months, and that customer went ahead and tried it, and they actually got like kind of like those sores in your mouth, like the. Not like a cold sore, but like a canker sore, when you get that little sore in your mouth.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, go
Yeah.
ahead and feel free.
Yeah, let's drink. So it's brewing up a sort of a yellow liqueur for those of you that may not be able to see it.
It smells really nice too.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder even what it would it'd probably be even more aromatic if you brewed it in something like porcelain.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's true. If you use like a gaiwan or something, you can get a little bit more of the aromatics out.
Mm-hmm. But this might be better at enhancing sort of the body of the tea.
That's true. Yeah.
So it's very sweet. I'd say it does a good job. It's not like what I would think of. Sometimes Hong Shui can be more, at least some of the Hong Shuis that I've had can be very close to like a black tea. And I would say this is closer to sort of being very middle of the road. It's got a nice balance of like roastiness, decent body.
Yeah, there's a difference between because even a lot of the Hong Shui now, like 2 years ago, my wife and I went down to Lugu to try to find like a really nice traditional dongding because I just haven't found one in a while.
Right.
And we could not find anyone who's producing tea like this. Funny enough, is I get this through a friend in Taipei who knows the farmer, but on my own, I wasn't able to find even in Lugu and Dongding a tea like this. A lot of the teas that we found were very strongly roasted, but they didn't go through the oxidation process that this tea has. It gives it kind of like a special, like you probably notice now in your mouth, it's really
a lot of sits very
taste.
nicely.
Yeah.
Really sweet. Very smooth tea too, I would say. So I don't know if that was a product of the year resting time or whatever, but very, very easy to drink, I would say.
Yeah, that's a lot from the oxidation makes it really smooth too. It kind of gets rid of a lot of the bitterness and makes it really mellow and kind of rounds the flavor out.
Mm-hmm. So it's more of creating a tea that's really nicely well-rounded than something that might have like super awesome aromatics, but that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it has more of like those kind of grainy aroma, like grain or maybe more like a ripe fruit rather than like a fresh fruit like that a green high mountain tea might have.
Right. Cheers. Mm. Yeah, so I guess ironically that you would think that you would be able to find this sort of tea if you actually went to the area, but in this case, you had to come. Well, it was closer to your doorstep, I guess. Then.
Well, the funny thing is, when we were down there, we were there for like 3 or 4 days, and because we were also meeting with a farmer in Shanlinxi, which is another really nice high mountain tea growing area, but since we were in the area, we thought, well, let's look for some dongding, and we couldn't find any. We went to so many. We spent days going to shops. We even looked online while we were down there. We were like, well, let's look online and in Chinese on the Chinese internet and see if we can find anyone making Hong Shui Oolong. And we found a few, but when we went to try them, they were just these like really heavily roasted tea, which is it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's different than the flavor you get through the oxidation.
Right, okay. So rather than being oxidized and sort of lightly roasted, sort of like this tea, it was more heavily roasted.
Yeah. But you can see that too in the color of the tea. Like this tea is like an amber yellow color. It's not brown or really dark red like a roasted tea would be.
Yeah. And the aroma of the tea, I'm actually able to smell all the way from back here, despite not being close to the leaves or not even necessarily the cups. So, really wonderful aroma from the liqueur. So a little bit more roast, a little bit more minerals for this tea.
Mm-hmm. And that's also the effect of the stoneware in the as well. It brings out a lot of the mineral characteristics.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And as someone that has an interest in aged oolongs and stuff like that, how would this continue to develop if I drank this, let's say, in 2 years or 5 years? Yeah.
Well, this kind of tea is very suitable for aging because tea that's been oxidized or roasted tends to age better than like a tea that's really green if you store it for a long time. It depends. It can be kind of hit or miss. It can either improve or just totally lose its flavor. But
right, you would definitely lose some of the, like those crisp, fresh notes that are more in the innate appeal of like a Dragon Well or like a super green oolong or something like that.
But this tea should age really well, especially if you store it in like a clay jar or something. It'd be really good for aging it.
So it would maybe even get smoother and smoother as time went on.
And usually, like right now, at least to me, what I notice is like it's kind of like has a little bit of notes of like spice and kind of like a toasted grain or something. Mm-hmm. But that would change into more something like probably like a plum type flavor and get over time.
And just become like super sweet, really hard to overbrew.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think that just about concludes this episode. So thank you all for tuning in. I definitely enjoyed this tea. Again, where could someone find out more about you, this tea, and just what you're up to at the Jade Leaf?
You can check out my website. I'm on Instagram and as the Jade Leaf on Instagram. Online, jadeleaf.com is my website, and on Facebook as the Jade Leaf. So you can find me there.
All right, and thank you guys for tuning in. We're gonna sit here and continue to enjoy this tea. Cheers.